Is anyone on?
No, just talk. You're
Oh,
live though.
okay. Well, I don't want to do the intro if no one's here.
Well, I know. We'll say hello. Like,
Hello. Is the mic working?
I don't know.
Hey everyone. Okay. Hi, welcome to Ask a Historian, Museum Collections Edition. My name is Felicity, and I'll be serving as today's historian. I'm the Museum Collections Coordinator here at the Village, and I manage the collection, help stage with the buildings, as well as create exhibits, and I'm excited to tell you a little bit about myself and about the world of museum collections. So I have my master's in museums professions from Seton Hall University. I got that in 2019. And I started as an intern here in 2017, working in the library. And I recently came on full time in 2022 as the Museum Collections Coordinator. This year, 2022, is an important year here for the Village. It is our bicentennial year, and celebrates the 200th anniversary from when James P. Allaire bought the property. We also have some really great exhibits coming up. The next exhibit will be on Allaire during the Victorian era, called Allaire Before the Park. And this will be open in the Namling building in August, so August 1st, mark your calendars. And this is a great chance to come out and see the Village and the collections, and we will discuss this all in our live stream. So don't forget to put any questions in the chat if any arise, or if you want clarifications on a question. And anyway, let's get started.
Okay, your first question, and this is coming from Facebook. What is the main job of a curator?
Oh, the main job of a curator is basically to kind of research the collection, make sure everything is accurate to us. Also, to create displays and exhibits to educate the public and kind of put everything together in like a little package that's easy to understand.
Okay. How did you become interested in historic collections?
Oh, so I actually started. I actually started in undergrad as a biology student, and then senior year I did an internship at the New Jersey State Museum working with their collections, the natural history collections, and I just really fell in love with working with museums and kind of cataloging everything. It was really fun, so that's how I got started and interested in history.
Now, this is a great question. This actually coming in from one of your interns. They asked, I know that you have a background in biology, but is there a way that biology is involved in museum collections and conservation?
Yes. So conservation is really interesting because not only do you need to know history and art, you also need to know a lot of chemical and biology. So a lot of the preservation work that people do either has to do with pest control, mold, or even like art history or restorations. You would need to know like specific chemical makeups of different paints and how to like restore the varnish and clean everything off.
That is very helpful. Are the historic homes considered a collections piece?
Yes and no. So certain museums do consider their historic homes items within the collection. We currently do not have such a system in place, but that doesn't mean that the buildings themselves are not historic or part of the collection.
Okay. So another question that we got, and this is coming from Instagram. I want to work in collections, but I don't know how.
Oh, so I would say the first part to working in collections is either you can go one of two routes. So you can either begin by looking for volunteer and internship programs within the field you're interested in studying. So for example, how I did a natural history internship at the New Jersey State Museum. So if you're interested in history, I definitely look for internship programs in history. Or you can go the school route where you can apply for a museum studies or museum professions degree. So usually that's a master's degree. There's a couple different places that offer it. and they also offer different tracks and specialties. So some schools even have like art history or regular history.
Okay, that's really cool. So is there a difference between the art history and what you're doing?
So art history would be based more on art history, where I did a very more generalized approach. So my track that I did was called registration, and it's basically museum collections management. So anything involving the preservation or inventorying or research of the artifacts would fall under that. I process all of the loan agreements and gift agreements, as well as any other like paperwork and stuff. So if it has to go out to a different museum, that would also be part of my realm. For those of you who are joining us now, my name is Felicity, and I am the Museum Collections Coordinator here at the Village. We're talking about the Allaire Museum Collections. So don't forget to put any questions in the chat if any come up, and if you want clarifications on the question as well.
All right. This one is coming in again off of an Instagram post that we did. How much leisure time would a villager have?
Oh, so like an actual back in the 1830s?
Yes.
Okay. No, I was like, oh, that's a good question. So it would really depend on what level worker they would be. Someone who was higher up would probably have a lot more leisure time, but the general worker would really only have nights and Sundays off. And most, because the blast furnace was going 7 days a week, so you had to have someone there running it continuously, and labor laws didn't really exist yet, so you were having people work like 12-hour shifts or more. Allaire was a religious man and did require students to go to school, so younger children did have more of a, not so much a leisure time, but a not working time. And then people would have off to go to church and other religious activities.
Okay, this one's also coming in from Facebook as well. Did James P. Allaire ever get involved with glass production, as was common enterprise at the iron furnace in South Jersey?
So based on my research, I do not have any evidence that James P. Allaire did experiment with glass blowing at all. I know that he did enamel work, which is basically putting a glaze on to a metal base. So they would cast the iron pot and then try to put a like enamel glaze on top of that to make it more preventative from like scratches and sticking, and just protecting the pot. A lot of, from my knowledge, the glassworks ended up coming about later than when we shut down.
Okay.
I believe Hal actually, sorry, I believe Hal actually like experimented with it very briefly, but I don't think it worked.
Was another experiment that Mr. Allaire did with the enameling building when he was making enamelware, would that have considered an experiment?
So yes, enameling at the time that James P. Allaire would have been working with it, which was in the late 1830s to 1840s, it was considered a relatively new invention that they really have not perfected the process of making enamelware. And during the time he was doing it, it was really popular, but because he couldn't get it to work, he kind of stopped, because it fell out of popularity until like I think the early 1900s is when it started picking up again, but I'm not sure on the exact dates on when it gained popularity.
Is there a certain era that you do you have a certain era that you love the museum collections for?
I kind of love all of the museum collection eras. Because everything kind of builds on top of each other, because you can't learn about one without kind of learning about the previous. So for example, in the Village we interpret 1836, so we give a lot of 1830s things from that time period, but you can't really like talk about the 1830s without also talking about what happens before and after. So there's the sawmill era with the Palmer sawmill, which is the 1700s, and then you also have everything that happened after the blast furnace shut down, where you had the Allaire family, you had Arthur Brisbane, who was a newspaper editor coming in. The Boy Scout camp era is really interesting. So it's hard to pick a favorite.
Okay. This question is coming from Instagram. What are some key sources for interpretation?
So there's a couple of primary sources that we use, primary being things that were first-hand accounts. So we do have some records of general store accounts, as well as some of James P. Allaire's personal and legal paperwork. We also have a couple of books that have since been out of print that we reference quite frequently, which is Brown's Allaire's Lost Empire, as well as another book called The How Works and the Romance of Allaire by, I think, oh my gosh, I can't remember his last name. I think it was, is it Walwright? Those two books, though, the How Works and the Romance of Allaire, as well as the Allaire's Lost Empire, are frequently referenced within our interpretation manuals, though.
Why did you become a curator?
Why did I become a curator?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think it all kind of stems back to what I was saying before about how I interned at the New Jersey State Museum in college. It was a time when I was a senior studying biology where I really kind of didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to work in a lab, and then the more I kind of worked and did other things in school and stuff, I kind of realized that wasn't really the path I wanted to go down. So after I did that internship, I realized I really liked working in museums, as well as educating the public about history and other things that I'm really passionate about. So yeah, like going down the path of working in the museum just kind of became really obvious to me, kind of, I don't want to say a calling, but something that really interests me, because yeah, it's just, I love handling the collections, working with objects with like firsthand, and then being able to kind of share like really fun, interesting things that people might not know necessarily with everyone.
So I guess this goes along kind of with the question that we just asked. It says, did you love history class in school?
I'm gonna say no.
It's okay.
So growing up, my history class was very much this happened on this date, remember this person's name. It was really focused on time periods I don't find that interesting. So basically working at Allaire, as well as just kind of like reading and like learning more about history in general, has kind of opened me up to be like, oh, like there's so much more than just remembering things and knowing like who did what when. There's a bunch of like social economical issues that you still kind of see today. There's just people's like personal lives and dramas that are always fun to kind of see unfold as you research. So it's kind of like watching it, a drama, but like being there with them. So I've come to love history, but it wasn't my favorite subject in school by any means.
So this is a question from the comment section.
Okay.
Yes, it's our first one. I'm very excited. What are your favorite past or present village restoration projects? Whether that be in a building as it is today, or something you're currently working on that you can talk about, of course.
Okay, yes. So there's a couple of them. One of them that was really exciting was I got to personally help out with this was our restoration of the enameling building. So that recently was restored both interior and exterior in the years between like 2019 to 2021, and that actually won an award from the Historic Preservation of New Jersey, so that was really fun. Some other restorations, I really love seeing all of the before and after photos, especially of like the Boy Scout era again, because a lot of the buildings were restored by the Boy Scouts of America, and it's just really interesting how they were able to kind of pull together and take these buildings and make them usable.
Especially for just being a camp.
Yeah, it was a camp.
We have another question in our comment section. Are there any primary sources related to the village school?
So, they're kind of scattered all over the place. We do have some report cards and other things that that are much later, and I'm kind of like following the trail. The school is very difficult to research for some reason though. We know that in addition to the chapel, at one point it was in the Reverend Tanzer's home, which was in one of the row houses. So it kind of like moved around too.
Interesting. Very interesting. Is it true that the school was in the bakery at one point?
There was a school in the bakery. I think that was later on. That I think was more in the late 1800s after the village, like the Hal Works kind of closed.
Okay. That makes sense. What is the most interesting facet of your position?
There's so many. I think my favorite thing, or like the most interesting thing, is just being able to kind of handle artifacts for because when you think about it, when you go into a museum and you see all these like things behind cases, sometimes you really want to touch the stuff and you know you're not supposed to. So being my job to like hold stuff in my hands is actually really exciting to me, because it's like there's something so tactile about being able to like hold an artifact, kind of like feel it.
Okay, what is the most valuable piece in the Allaire collection?
So all of our items are invaluable to us. There is no really item that I can say is the most valuable, especially from a monetary standpoint. If I did have to put a price tag on anything, I think the buildings would actually be the most valuable as far as that goes. But I can't really answer that question.
What is the most treasured piece in the collection that was actually a personal possession of Mr. Allaire? And to go along with that question, is it on display somewhere in Allaire?
Oh, so there's a couple of those. So in the Allaire residence, the dining set that we have on display was actually owned by the Allaire family. James P. Allaire commissioned it from one of the carpenters. So that is currently on a long-term loan from the Allaire family. There is also in our visitor center several pieces of Allaire family items. There is some silver spoons that were owned by James P. Allaire, as well as a tortoiseshell Bible that was brought over from France by James P. Allaire's great-grandfather.
I always wondered what that book was.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know. More you know, right? Okay. Do you... Wait. Oh, that's the third question. Sorry. Do you have a favorite piece in the Allaire collection?
I have a couple favorite pieces. So, this is going to sound so bizarre. One of my favorite objects that we have is the doll that is in display in the manager's back parlor. So that's kind of like the children's area where they would have done like their homework, played, kind of like a family room. And part of the reason that doll is one of my favorite objects was just because when I started interning here, it was on a shelf right next to the desk, so it was kind of staring at me for months at a time. So then when we moved it for display, I kind of ended up like missing it. So some other objects that I really enjoy, other than the weird sentimentality of having something stare at you for a couple months, is a lot of our archival material is really interesting. We have a beautiful sketch by Hal Allaire of his kind of reimagining of if the charcoal depot was still standing, something that he would have done to turn it into a hotel. There's also some like personal books and stuff that people have owned. And yeah, I think that's it.
What piece in the Allaire collection is actually the oldest, and what year approximately?
So we have a couple contenders for that. We have a cannonball from the Revolution, and we also have a couple of books that date from the early 1700s. One of them being the Bible I mentioned earlier that is on display in the Visitor Center, the tortoiseshell one, which dates from 1717.
How have your personal interests shaped the artifact you find the most interesting?
Oh, I think probably like I think your personal biases and interests kind of shape what things you find the most interesting in general. So for me, knowing like in history, I am most interested in the kind of like personal stories of people. So I think like knowing that like the archival materials are really interesting to me because of that, as well as kind of having an interest in like art and architecture does make me kind of really appreciate how beautiful Hal's sketches are in that regard. So.
Okay, this one's also from the comment section.
Okay.
I find this very fascinating. She says, if I'm allowed to ask a question, have you ever come across some information that was taught or interpreted for years, but found out later on that was incorrect, has now been corrected, and it's way cooler or more interesting than before?
Oh my gosh. This is an excellent question, and thank you so much for asking it. I feel like there was something, and now that I'm asked it, I can't remember. Because there's definitely different things that have been added and changed in the interpretation manual. I believe the location of the school, I think, was one of them. There's something about James Allaire's like life that I feel like was something that was changed. I think, can I talk about that?
Yeah,
I think I can. So there was some family drama with the Allaires because he married a woman who was about the same age as some of his older children. So we did find out some knowledge or information about that kind of was like a little scandalous, but not as scandalous as one would think. So I think if I remember some of the other stuff, I will definitely mention it as well.
Okay. Well, while you think of that answer, because I know that is a tough question.
Yeah, there's so much, history is a evolving story, so like we're always changing like small things that we learn.
Okay. So, how do you track and label the pieces in the collection? And there's a question that goes along with this is, do you use the Dewey Decimal System?
So in order to track the collections, we do something called accessioning, which is basically taking note of the object as well as ovo's provenance, so like its personal history, like who owned it when and who gave it to us. And then we have our own numbering system. This is very common in museums, and most of them have ones that are specific to the site. Ours has gone through a couple of different changes over the years. At one point, I think we were using a system that the state of New Jersey had given us. But then also, like, typically it goes by year, a object number, and then another signifier. I can't really, it would take me a really long time to go into like all the nuances of numbering an object. To answer the second question about the Dewey Decimal System, we don't typically use that here, mostly because the Dewey Decimal System was developed more for a public library and is not really used in archives. Typically in an academic site or institution, they would use the Library of Congress system.
I didn't know that. Okay. Have you thought of anything else for that other question? Or are you still thinking?
I'm still thinking.
That's
I know.
okay.
I know. There's more.
There's a lot. O'Leary has a lot of history.
I know. That's why it's bothering me that I can't remember.
Okay. Next question. Do you take interns? If so, what sort of projects do they do?
Yes, we do take interns. I try to make sure that the project that they're doing is something that suits their interest. So a lot of what we've done in the past is we would either have interns do inventories. So periodically we have to inventory every building in the village to make sure all of the objects are in its proper place. There are 13 buildings, so it does kind of take a while. So usually we will only do one at a time. And inventory is basically just making sure everything is where it's supposed to be. And usually interns will help out with that project. We also have a couple of small rotating displays, so interns can research and design their own exhibit. We also have social media interns, research interns, but I think I covered the main two projects.
There's a third part to this question.
There?
Yeah. It's a big question. What projects would you like to see people? Like, what projects are you looking to get done?
Oh, so I think for me, one thing I would really like is to have more research. Currently, we also have interns working on a project I'm really excited for, which is trying to get our archives and libraries open again to the public. It would be by appointment, but I've often gotten questions about doing research, especially genealogy, and unfortunately it was not in a state where we could have people come in and research, but we are working to get to that point.
Okay. Does the village take donations of artifacts?
We do. So if you would like to donate an artifact, please reach out to me directly. I can be found at 73. My information will be on the website. You can email or call me. We will not take everything offered, and there's a couple of reasons for that. We simply don't have the room for a lot of objects. Sometimes we're offered things that don't fit into the scope of collection, so we have a document that basically outlines things that we can accept and cannot accept. It goes into what date ranges we are looking for. It goes into what kind of things we were looking for. It's an internal document, so it won't be available to the public. But if you reach out with anything, I will let you know one way or the other. And if we can accept it, I am more than willing to try to help you find another institution that will.
How are you looking to grow the O'Leary collection? What kind of objects are you looking for to add to it to make the O'Leary history better?
So right now we have a lot of furniture in all of the homes. They're fully furnished, but we don't have a lot of the smaller kind of like lifestyle items you would expect in a home. So things like silverware, things like other kind of like implements, like tools and things, we don't really have a lot of. So kind of those smaller, more personal items are things that I'm really looking for right now.
Okay. Do you have an answer for that other question that we asked earlier? Do you need me to repeat it?
Sure.
Okay. It's up to you. Alright. Have you ever come across information that was taught or interpreted for years but found out later that it was incorrect?
I think the location of the school was one of them.
Yeah.
Because I know for years we had said that it was like pretty much only in the chapel when really it had moved around quite a bit. So it had gone to the row homes. The bakery was much later, but like at one point it was in the bakery. Yeah, that's one of them.
Okay, we talked about that. Alright. And then we talked about that. Alright, what is your favorite building on the property?
The foreman's cottage. So I really like interpreting that building when I don my little interpreter's outfit. It is a really interesting building as being one of the first buildings that James P. Allaire actually built for the site. At one point, there was a summer kitchen, so that's really fun and interesting to know about that building. And overall, it's adorable. Oh, does anyone else have any questions? Let us know in the chat.
I think we answered most of the questions that we had pulled. If there was a dream museum that you could be at, what would it be? Besides Allaire, of course.
I was gonna say.
I mean, Allaire's your favorite.
Yeah, Allaire is my favorite. So I think if I were to work at any museum ever, it would probably be the Natural History Museum in New York City.
Why?
I really like their collection. I think dinosaurs are really cool. I really like the dioramas. I really wish that there was a way that we can do really fun dioramas, but I don't think there is. And I don't know.
That was more of a pure curiosity thing.
Night at the Museum's a fun movie.
It is a very fun movie. You're very correct on that one. Okay. What is one fun fact that you love about Allaire?
Oh my gosh, there's so many fun facts.
You can tell a couple of them.
So this kind of goes to iron making in general. I think it's really interesting that bog iron is a renewable resource that replenishes every 20 years. This is where my biology comes in. It's made by bacteria who kind of break down parts of the soil, and it all clumps together into an iron ore. So that's a really interesting fun fact. I think a lot of what Howell Allaire did was a really interesting and not often talked about. So at one point, and this will be explored in the upcoming exhibit, at one point it was kind of a informal artist colony. He often invited people to come to plays. There was a lot of hotels, there wasn't a lot of hotels, but there's a lot of hotels in the area, including at Allaire, and people would basically come to do outdoor recreation. I think there's a couple other fun facts. Let's think about that. I think some of the, actually this kind of relates to the education, or learning new facts about buildings and the site and changing our interpretation, is the entire setup of the Allaire Mansion. So the dormitories that we have, we interpret as being dormitories for unmarried workers, and we're not really sure if that's actually accurate. We know at one point, especially after the village shut down, or not the village shut down, the village was still running. The ironworks shut down. It was used as a kind of stage house, so people would come from basically all around the area to visit Mr. Allaire. He was friends with the Vanderbilts, and he would basically host big parties here, and it was really fun.
I know that Arthur Brisbane, he was the last physical owner. I also know that Mr. Arthur Brisbane, he worked for the Hearst Company. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did Hearst ever come visit him here at Allaire?
I'm not sure, actually. I'm sure he did.
I stumped the historian.
You did. You stumped me. Yeah, that's a question for our boss, Hans Sikis. He would know.
That is a good question.
Yeah, I'm sure that the amount of time that Arthur Brisbane lived here, that Hearst must have visited him at least once.
Are we in contact with any of the living Allaire family members?
Oh, so yes, we are. So we are kind of in contact with a couple of them. Like I said, we had the dining set that belongs to the Allaire family. So that is currently on a long-term loan, meaning that it's not something that was donated. It's basically renewed every couple of years that the Allaire family has it. Recently, the other day, someone actually came up to me and told me that he was a descendant of the Allaire family and was asking more about family history. So, James P. Allaire had 5 children that made it to adulthood from his first marriage, as well as Hal. So out of his first marriage, believe all 5 of them had children. So like there was a lot of descendants. You think about their children and their children. So yeah, we're in contact with a couple of them.
Did one question that interpreters, or at least when I was an interpreter, we used to get a lot was people passed away. People died, but where did they go? Did the village have a cemetery?
It did not. So they were actually buried. There's a couple of places around the area. There is Brewers, which is down the street on, I think that's Lakewood Squonkam, that goes into Farmingdale. The road that goes into Farmingdale. There's also nestled in between the 2 lanes of I-95 a Quaker cemetery. And then there is also cemeteries within, farther towards the beach in Manasquan, as well as other places that they would have been buried instead.
Is Mr. Allaire buried around here?
No, he is buried in New Rochelle, New York. The Allaire family is originally from New York, in New Rochelle, and that is where their family plot is.
Allaire is French Huguenot. What is a Huguenot?
The Huguenots. Yes, that is an excellent question. One I don't really know the full thing about because I'm not really good with religions, but Huguenot is a type of French Protestant. I don't know when they broke off to the family church, and I don't know how they compare with other types of Protestant. The family was Huguenot, but at one point the Allaire family converted to Episcopalian. So the chapel that we have on site was formerly an Episcopal church. It was used as a church and is still used as a wedding chapel until I want to say the early 20th century is when it discontinued use as a full service chapel, but it is still used for weddings and memorial services and baptisms, and this is where I'm advertising for you to get married here.
How does a chapel, and if you don't know how to answer this question, you don't have to. I'm assuming there's like a process they have to go through to.
Yeah.
I
I don't know the full process of how something is active versus not active as far as being a religious site goes. I know there has to be some kind of legal thing to it. I'm just not sure exactly.
What is the significance of the Allaire Bible in the Mr. Allaire's house?
Oh, so that Bible, I believe is from the 1870s or 1880s. It actually belongs to I think a cousin. There's actually a funny story about this. So one of my predecessors went in there and realized that the Bible was not there. And we were really afraid because it's a very nice Bible. So we looked around for it, we could not find it. Eventually we found out that someone else working here had given it to a member of the Allaire family because they were getting married at the chapel and wanted to basically continue adding the Allaire legacy to the Bible. So it is now safe and sound in the home, but there was a very brief panic that went on, and yeah, I was not around for that story, but I do think it's a kind of funny anecdote.
Is there significance of why it's near a window?
Yes, so the family Bible, I kind of alluded to it in my little story. But the reason was kind of very important to the family because it not only contained the Bible, but it contained a family record. So anytime there was a birth, a death, or a marriage, or any kind of like other family event, a lot of times people would write it in the Bible to kind of keep track of everything. So you'd have generations of family history within this one book. So many people, in order to kind of preserve that, would keep it by a window in case if there is any kind of fire or disaster, they could easily throw the book out of the household before kind of escaping themselves. And that was just so that they would have it safe. Because if it was lost, basically your entire family history was lost as well.
Sounds like someone needed to invest in a safe.
Well, I don't know if they had safes that can prevent fire.
That is true. That is true.
Let me know in the chat if there's any other questions, and I will be happy to answer them.
Oh, yes. Another question just came. We have another question. Is there a class that I can take here at Alair to learn more about museum collections?
There is not currently, but we are hoping to do lecture series in the future, so maybe.
Any inaccurate items that have been on display?
I'm not going to answer that one.
Okay, that's...
We're not going to. For the most part, no.
Okay, good. As a museum collection person, are you in charge of also trying to make things look as period as possible as well?
Yeah, so that kind of goes into the curator role. You want to do research and make sure that everything looks as accurate as possible in the museum, because our primary goal is to educate people, and if something is incorrect, you're also kind of teaching people something incorrect. So you want to make sure that is fixed moving forward. There are a couple of times where, especially in the Living History Museum, that is necessary to use a reproduction or a modern object, but we kind of try to keep that to a minimal.
Is there a certain technique that you like to use that is very popular that you like to use to make something look old to new?
Old to new or new to old?
New to old, sorry. Reverse the question.
Not necessarily.
Why is preserving local history important to you?
Oh, that's an excellent question. So to me, preserving local history is really important because not only does it give insight to the modern locale, but it's basically, local history kind of has a personal connection to you. It's something that people can really connect with, knowing like they've grown up in the place and things have happened in that, like where they've grown up. It kind of just makes history feel more personal to the person as well.
What is one way that people can keep our local history alive here at Alair Village?
Can I say that?
What is one way people can help keep Alair's history alive?
Please donate it to us. I was about to say something like give us money, but yes, no, any donations that go to Alair Village really help us with preservation and keeping our artifacts preserved. It can go to conservation. It goes to our buildings directly to preserve them from any kind of damage. So yeah, any donations from people are really, really appreciated.
Okay, we have a question in the comment section.
Okay.
When the furnace closed down, did all of the workers leave, or were there other occupations that remained for those living in the village?
Yeah, so there is definitely people that did stay. Some of the workers would have gone on to work at other ironworks, The Pine Barrens had a couple other furnaces that some of them lasted a little bit longer, some of them lasted not as long, but there were people that did stay to work on other trades and crafts. We did still have a carpenter shop. There was other occupations that they would have had. The general store was still here. During later time periods, the area was kind of converted to farmland, so there was things to keep people here. Thanks again for watching, everyone. Let me know if you had any questions. These are all been great so far.
Why did Allaire shut down?
That is a great question. So, Allaire shut down for a couple of different reasons that kind of all combined into one. So starting, one of them was Allaire financially. The man, Allaire, not the place, kind of hit a couple of rough patches because of his ships. A lot of them ended up getting shipwrecked, so that kind of put a hit on him financially. Another thing that really drove a lot of iron works, especially in New Jersey, to shut down was the discovery of anthracite and iron mines in Pennsylvania and other places out west. So mining iron ore, it's a lot cleaner iron. You get you don't have to do as laborious of smelting to get it to be workable as you do with bog iron. So that kind of pushed the works to shut down. The advent of like railroads also kind of pushed that into effect as well. So it was kind of a mix of a bunch of different things that finally just kind of drove it out of business.
Did Allaire allow both boys and girls to go to school? Do you think he was progressive for his time?
Yeah, so Allaire did actually require most of both boys and girls to attend school. They would have attended school 5 or 6 days a week, depending on their age, and then the other day they would either work in the screw factory or attended church. So, like I said, it was a very religious thing. I would say James P. Allaire was pretty progressive for the time period. He was an abolitionist. Like I said, he did provide education for both boys and girls, and providing education in and of itself for free for its workers' students was very progressive at the time, as this was really like pre-public schools.
I have a question. So this is about Arthur Brisbane.
Okay.
Now, Arthur Brisbane, he bought the property here, and then there's also, if you drive around here in New Jersey, something called Phalanx Road that's also related to a Brisbane as well. Are they related to each other?
I'm not sure. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That has. I know that the school was in the chapel. Wait. I know that school in the chapel is used in the Lancastrian system. What is that?
Oh, so the Lancastrian system is a type of education system that was popular at the time. So in order basically to teach a lot of students at once of many different ages, the teacher would teach the oldest students first, and then those students in return would teach the next group of students, and those students would teach those until you got to basically the youngest students. So it was kind of a system of mentorship from old to young.
This is a great question. Does Mr. Allaire have his own currency? If so, do we have any of the original currency from Mr. Allaire?
I love this question so much. We do. So we actually have a small display case in our visitor center with some of the original Allaire currency. This was kind of popular for company towns such as ours at the time. Instead of using US currency, they would kind of print their own, and there was a couple of reasons for this. So the first one being, during the 1830s, the US financial system was kind of a mess. And then the other one was kind of a practical reason for the bookkeepers at the general store as well as the company. So originally what they would do was the blast furnace would run for a certain amount of time, usually 9 to 10 months, and then it would have to get shut down in order to be refurbished. So the workers would have a running credit with the general store in town, and then would have to pay it all at the end when they got paid. Now, this kind of ended up becoming a little bit of a hardship on the store as well as the workers, as the general store would say they would owe one amount based on what they had on record, but then it would not necessarily match what the workers had on record. And then it would kind of become a fight, and then the workers also did not have any money for most of the year because they would only get paid once a year. So the company money system would had serve the practical purpose of the workers would be able to get paid more regularly, like weekly, with company money, which they can then turn in at the company store. This was kind of more to get rid of the credit system in order to kind of keep finances a little bit more easy to maintain. And then if the worker wanted to leave the company town, Mr. Laird was actually backing this with silver, so like people could be able to leave. Many of these company towns, once you were in a company town though, you did choose to stay because all of the amenities were right there for you. And our area was kind of more backwoods at the time than it is now.
A Laird Village frequently works with local artists to promote our local history. What is your favorite painting, photographer, or sketch about a Laird that you've seen of a Laird?
Oh, there's so many of them.
I know you like art.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think of artists off the top of my head. We have a bunch of paintings around the village from the Manasquan River Artist Group. They did lovely paintings of all of our non-existent buildings that we had on site. I recently had a photo contest running, which you can still see some of those photos in our enameling building, and we had some really wonderful photographers come out for that. There's been watercolors, there's so many different ones.
Oh, this is a great question. She's gonna love this one. What happened to the charcoal depot, and where is the charcoal depot?
So the charcoal depot currently is a small brick structure with a cement pad next to it in the middle of the field across from the general store. The charcoal depot was where they would have stored the charcoal to load into the blast furnace. It was top loading, so you would load all the fuel at the top. So it's at the top of the hill from where the blast furnace is. The actual charcoal depot was a brick structure that was 3 stories of arches, and it basically just kind of crumbled. It was pretty much ruined by 1900. Only a small portion of it remained. During the 1920s, when this was more of a tourist town and Arthur Brisbane lived across the street, it was a car garage, so they basically outfitted the remaining thing to park cars within it. And then just kind of over the years, that had also basically fallen. It was not a very sturdy structure, to say the least. I would love to rebuild it one day because I think it would be really amazing to see such a large brick building with so many arches in it, but I don't know when that would ever happen.
Why did they park cars on the charcoal depot? Why were they parking cars in the middle of the village?
Oh, so the current carpenter shop was converted at one point to an inn. So it was kind of a high-end luxury resort. It was based on outdoor recreation, so you can play tennis, you can go hiking in the woods. And then it was also located pretty conveniently in between Lakewood, which was also a resort town in the early 1900s, and Spring Lake. So you would have the beach resort right there.
What type of ingredients do you add to the blast furnace to create pig iron?
So you would need iron ore. You would also need flux, which is a type of siliconous material. You would need something with calcium in it. So people along the Jersey Shore especially would have access to giant clam middens. So basically they would be giant piles of clam shells made by the Lenape because they would summer here. So the Lenape Indians would come summer, basically have a giant clam eating session and then go on to wherever they would go during the fall. So giant clam piles were kind of left over from that time period of centuries of people coming here eating clams and then piling them in clam heaps. So you'd have that for calcium. You would also need coal or coke in order to fuel the fire. So coke is another form of a charcoal or carbon based fuel material, and I think that is all of them.
Okay, so we do have a question in the comment section.
Okay.
And we're going to be wrapping up soon, so if you guys have any final questions, please put them in the comment section, but down below. This is also a really good question. I don't know the answer to this one either. Obviously, they needed a way to sustain themselves here. And they needed to eat because people need food to survive. Where was there a field designated for farming?
So there was local farmland. The Allaire, James P. Allaire had kind of partnerships and traded with local farmers. So some of the farmland you see around here has actually dated from that time period. So yeah, there was a couple of different places on site where they tried to make gardens. Over by the carriage house would have, in between like there and the Allaire residence, would have been one spot. Behind that section also would have been there. But basically local farmers, this area of Monmouth County was either forested or farmland at the time, so there was not many major towns as you have today. Oh, yeah. So I want to thank everyone who came to this live stream today. It was really fun to be able to tell everyone things about museum collections, and everyone asked some really wonderful questions. I am Felicity again. I'm the Museum Collections Coordinator here at Allaire Village, and I want to thank you all again for attending this live stream. Bye.